Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for the Three Corners Capital fourth quarter educational webinar. My name is Steve Fortin, and along with my partner, Chris Flores, we are very pleased to host today's speaker and presentation on mindfulness and stress management. You know, we've been hosting quarterly investment webinars for years, and this year we began hosting what we call educational webinars on a variety of topics not directly related to the economy or investments. And so we thought today's topic would be timely and helpful as we all have to manage stress, which can be elevated this time of year. So we're very pleased to introduce Tom Klisiewicz with Calamos Investments. He is the Director of Learning and Development at Calamos Investments. And so thank you very much for being here, Tom. The floor is yours.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Let me go ahead and share some of my slides here.
So, Tom, how did you first become interested in mindfulness?
Yeah, I'd say it really was back in high school. Ever since I was in high school, I loved studying successful people, seeing what were the habits and the practices that they were doing on a day-to-day basis. I'll give you on this slide, some of the people that I kind of consider maybe the best in what they do. And those of you who are on the call, on the webinar, look through this and see how many of these people you can guess the names of these individuals. Steve, I'll ask you, can you pick one or two that you know, maybe from these pictures?
Well, of course, Jerry Seinfeld, Michael Jordan, Clint Eastwood, Oprah, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, excellent. All right, you can probably get them all. Yeah. So I'll just kind of go through them so everybody can see them. So we get Jerry Seinfeld, we get Jimmy Fallon, we got Steve Jobs. This one here is Arianna Huffington of the Huffington Post. This one usually people have a little bit of trouble getting. So this is Sarah Blakely. What Sarah Blakely is famous for is the Spanx. So she actually became a self-made billionaire from that business. Then you got Michael Jordan, you got Michael Phelps, you got George Stephanopoulos, Howard Stern. You got Oprah Winfrey, you got Clint Eastwood, like you mentioned. This is actually Dr. Herbert Benson. I'll talk a little bit about him in a moment. He's a Harvard Medical School researcher. And then Ray Dalio of Bridgewater Associates. So when I was studying all these people, I was seeing that like certain things were coming up over and over and over again of what they were kind of mentioning that was really important to their success. And one of the big ones for all of these people was kind of those mental training things like mindfulness, those types of techniques. So when I saw this, okay, I thought, all right, all these famous people are doing it, but is there any research or any science behind this? And sure enough, I found that, many of the most prestigious institutions in the world are studying this stuff and finding many, many benefits to it. And it's not just, a couple studies or a few dozen studies. Mindfulness, there have been over 4,700 studies that have been published in either a health journal or a medical journal on mindfulness. And what are they finding? They're finding a ton of different benefits. Lowering stress, we'll talk about that. That's a big one for this presentation. Helping people lower stress. Everybody's under a lot of stress right now with the holidays and everything like that, and just life in general overall. But they find that people are healthier, they live longer, they sleep better, they save money on things like healthcare costs, they report being happier, they perform better, they have more energy and focus, creativity, and more positive relationships. So when I saw, all right, there's all these famous people that are, the top of their game that are doing this, and I want to be the top of my game at whatever it is I decide to do. There's all this research behind it that's saying that there are benefits to it. That's when I started to practice it myself a long, long time ago and saw that, most of this stuff was happening in my life as well, all of these benefits. So that's when I said, all right, I need to teach, as many people as I possibly can about, these types of techniques. And that's where I started, a long time ago, I was kind of looking around to try to find, are there any legitimate institutions that actually teach people how to teach it? And I found that, many of those institutions that are studying this stuff also have programs to teach people. So I actually went through my certification. Everything is through a program that was created by Harvard Medical School researchers at the Benson Henry Institute and Massachusetts General Hospital. There's a number of different programs that have kind of taught me how to teach mindfulness, from programs for adults and kids and everything like that. So that's kind of my journey, if you will, to mindfulness overall.
So you've mentioned that stress can be detrimental to our finances and our wealth. Why exactly is that?
Yeah, I would say I think it's important to kind of talk first about how it impacts our health, overall, and then we can kind of jump into the wealth. With the health, I think most people kind of know, hey, stress, that toxic stress can be kind of bad. Well, why is that? Well, most people know, when I'm stressed out, maybe my heart rate is up, my blood pressure's up, those things that are happening. But a lot of other kind of bad things happen when you're in that stress response. Your cholesterol levels go up. Your immune system and your digestive system actually work less effectively when you're in that stress response. So those of you who maybe joining us and eat lunch, if you're on the stress response, your digestive system actually isn't working as well as it should if you're in that stress response. Sleep is disrupted. A lot of people have trouble sleeping. Their sense of well-being, usually you fly off the handle a little bit, more often when you're stressed out. And that's okay if our stress response just happens every once in a while, like it was kind of built for. But the problem is today we're dealing with stressors over and over and over again. And as a result, it's causing negative things to our health, like depression, like infection, tissue damage, inflammation. All of these negative things can kind of happen that cause lots of dangers. Just how bad is it? Well, these are a few questions that I've got that those of you in the audience, I'll just have you kind of in your head kind of guess what you think the numbers would be. So what percentage of doctor visits do you think today are for stress-related conditions? So basically, these are basically visits to the primary care physician that we wouldn't be going there if we weren't stressed out. That stress is the reason that we're actually, becoming sick and actually having to go to the doctor. So all of you in the audience kind of think of a number, and if that number is anywhere from 60 to 90%, you are correct. So 60 to 90% of visits to the primary care physician is estimated are basically we're going there because we're stressed. If we weren't under so much stress, we wouldn't be going to the doctor as much. What percentage of all illness and disease do you think is made worse by stress? Again, think of a number, 1 to 100%. What do you think? The answer, the research says 90% of all illness disease is actually made worse. If we have an illness or disease, we're stressed out, it's made worse by that stress. My guess was 100%, and that makes sense to me. I haven't thought of anything that I might have had, any type of illness or disease that I might have had that wouldn't be made worse by stress. And the last question I've got for you is we've got on this plotting here, you've got healthy life expectancy and annual medical expenses. This is a plotting of 22 OECD countries. And basically, which one do you think is the one that's circled? So these are all developed nations, which has the lowest healthy life expectancy and by far the most expensive healthcare. And pretty much everybody usually gets this one right. It's good old United States of America. So those are the dangers that it's causing for our health. But Steve, as you kind of mentioned for our wealth and our well-being, that actually has to do, or the question that you kind of asked, is really has to do with what's happening in our brain. So this kind of bluish greenish part of the brain, that's the front part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the human part of the brain, the heart part of the brain that helps you think and make decisions and things like that. When we're in that stress response, this red part, the kind of fight or flight, the fear portion of our brain actually takes over, the amygdala, and actually shuts down our prefrontal cortex. So we're actually no longer thinking well when we're in that stress response. And that causes a lot of issues with both wealth and well-being. Just example with wealth, and then we'll talk a little bit about well-being. But this is one thing that I like to kind of mention. So this is, and again, if you're on the call, go ahead and take a guess on what you think this was. So the average annual return for the S&P 500 over this 20-year time period. So basically, I put my money in December 31st of 93. I take it out in 2013. How much have I made on an average annual return? Now, why did I pick this random, 20-year time frame? Well, I like this because it includes both the tech bubble bursting in 2000 and then the financial crisis in 2008. So you got two really stressful times in the market. So take a guess on what you think that average annual return was if I keep my money in the whole time. And if you guess B, to 9.28%, you are correct. So that's keep my money in, leave it in. Now, do most people do that, or do a lot of people do that? Usually not, unfortunately. So this was, Dalbar tried to do a study where they basically looked at, all right, what did the average mutual fund investor get during the same 20-year time period? And how they calculated this was they looked at mutual fund flows. They said if on a month there's net outflows over that average on a particular month, we'll assume that the average investor is selling out. And then if there's net inflows, we'll assume the average investor is buying back in. So they then tracked it over the same 20-year period. What do you think the average investor got? Again, if I put my money in and kept it in, I got 9.28. And then the average investor got much, much lower, 2.54. And I would argue that probably has to do with the stress response, with your brain not working, that prefrontal cortex not working correctly. So you can see here, these blue lines going up, that's net inflows, blue lines going down, that's net outflows. You can see here, as the market goes down, a lot of people are getting out, and it's not till we're way back in the positive that people are getting back in. So that's because I'll just jump back up here to the brain because of what's happening in the brain. Now, realize that's just a financial decision. So that's going to impact, obviously your wealth, but it impacts a lot of other things too. Just your overall decision making, just your overall, when you're working, if you're really, really stressed out, a lot of times you're having trouble kind of concentrating and thinking. That's because that amygdala is taken over and that prefrontal cortex just isn't working. And that's where your decision-making happens. It's also, in addition to that, also is where your emotional intelligence is. So there's a lot of research out there that shows our well-being, our happiness is really based on our relationships overall. And our ability to manage relationships, correctly and successfully really happens in that emotional intelligence portion of the brain, that prefrontal cortex part of the brain. So if we have that on, we're able to kind of identify what our emotions are and deal with those appropriately. We're also able to identify with the people that are around us, our coworkers, our family members, our friends, and really be able to kind of tune into what they're feeling emotionally and be able to meet them in that spot correctly. And the problem is when we're stressed out, that amygdala is taken over, and that emotional intelligence part of the brain is actually shut down. I heard, was at a conference a few years ago, and there was a gentleman who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0, really, really good kind of practical book. And somebody raised his hand. He went through all this stuff about, hey, here, how do you improve your emotional intelligence? And finally, somebody just raised their hand and say, okay, that's great, but I don't have all that time. What's one thing I can do to kind of improve my emotional intelligence? And he said, all right, I'll give you two. One was get more sleep. Usually people need more sleep. And two was practice mindfulness. Because what mindfulness does, as we'll talk about a little later, is it allows you to kind of catch yourself in the amygdala, take a breath, bring it back to that prefrontal cortex. So you're kind of training your brain to be able to bring it back to the prefrontal cortex, be able to make better decisions, be able to handle more, make more emotionally intelligent decisions as well overall. So that's kind of on the health and the well-being of the benefits for that overall.
Yeah, very interesting. So you're a big proponent of mindfulness to help people, effectively manage their stress. But to start off, can you explain to us what exactly mindfulness is?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, it's just being attentive to what's happening right now, being open to it, not judging it in any way, being curious about it, and just being completely present. Because the benefits of this and kind of why it works, if you will, is for the majority of us, especially us in the U.S., and I'm sure many of you listening to this webinar right now, it would be true, is if we're completely in the present moment, there's really nothing to be stressed about. The majority of our stress comes from us thinking and worrying about something that might happen in the future or regretting something that happened in the past. The problem is our bodies and our brains can't tell the difference between what we're thinking about and what's actually going on in the moment. So that worrying about the future, regretting the past, is still having all that bad stuff happen in our bodies and our brains, even though right now there's nothing to be worried about. So for instance, right now, you're just on a webinar, you're learning some stuff. There's really nothing to be stressed out or worried about. But when you start to think, oh my gosh, I got all these presents I got to buy, I've got family coming in soon, that causes that stress response to react in your body and has all those detrimental effects. So mindfulness is really all about just being present, being in the moment overall.
Very cool. Can you give us a few examples of mindfulness and maybe guide us through one of them now?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can give you. We'll do kind of a longer one. We could do a body scan, and then I'll give you a couple quick ones that you can do as well. So this is one that's a great one if you've got a few minutes or so to kind of calm yourself down. It's also a great one to do right before you go to bed to kind of get kind of present. And with this, it's what it's called is a body scan meditation. So essentially with this, what we're going to do is your focus is going to be on a part of your body. I'm going to start with your toes and then kind of move up to your whole body. So the mindfulness piece is that you're just focused on whatever part of your body that you're in. Again, you're being open to it, not judging it in any way. You're just being present with that part of the body. So for those of you on the webinar, if you want to kind of get comfortable, maybe sit in a kind of a comfortable, open, upright position. If you want to, you could go ahead and close your eyes, but you don't have to close your eyes. You could simply just, stare at a spot on the wall, some non-distracting spot, maybe on the floor or whatever it may be. And I want you to shift your focus to your breath. Just breathe at a normal, natural pace. And now if you'll shift your focus to your toes. You feel your toes, feel the atoms in your toes, feel the space between those atoms. Now you move to your feet. Your ankles and your calves. Your knees, both your kneecaps and the space behind your knees. Your thighs. Sit bones. Lower back. And you're just feeling that part of your body. If you've noticed that your mind has wandered, that's okay. Just allow that thought to flow out of your head, and then just listen for the next part of the body that I mentioned. We'll move to the upper back. Move around to the front of your body if you focus on your stomach. Your chest. Shoulders. And then we'll begin to move down the arms. If you focus on the upper arms, both your biceps and your triceps. Your elbows. Your lower arms and your wrists. The palms of your hands. Your fingers. Once again, you're just feeling your fingers, feeling the atoms in your fingers, feeling the space between those atoms. Now, if you move up to your neck, mouth and your chin, your nose and your cheeks, your eyes and all the muscles around your eyes, forehead, the back of your head. And then continue to keep your eyes closed if you focus on the top of your head. Now, before I invite you to open your eyes, what I want you to do is just take a moment just to notice how you feel. Perhaps you feel a little more calm, a little more relaxed after completing that body scan than you did before. Now you can shift your focus back to your breath. Maybe wiggle your fingers and toes. Begin to picture the room around you. And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So that's one. I'll give you a couple other really short ones because that's a good one, like I said, to do right before you go to bed or when maybe right after lunch or something. You kind of need to calm yourself down. But sometimes we don't have 5 minutes or so, whatever that took. Sometimes you just need to do something quick. So here's a couple quick ones. This one is 3 mindful breaths. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a deep breath in, and then on the exhale, your focus should just be on calming your body. So exhale and calm your body. Now breathe in, a deep breath in. And on the exhale, calm your mind. And then a deep breath in. And on the exhale, I want you to think of someone in your life, could be a friend, could be a family member. And I want you just to quietly in your mind wish them well. So maybe on the exhale, may so-and-so be happy and healthy. So that's one. Again, 3 mindful breaths, calm the body, calm the mind, and then wish someone well. And the last one I've got for you is, we call this 5-finger breathing. So if you hold your hands up like this, kind of parallel to each other, and then take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, put your pinky finger together. Deep breath in. On the exhale, ring fingers together. Just the tips of those fingers. Deep breath in. Middle fingers together. Deep breath in. On the exhale, pointer fingers together. And then deep breath in. Thumbs together. So you can put your hands down there. So why I really love this one is this one. So basically, you're taking 5 deep breaths, which will kind of activate, will basically get you out of that stress response and into what's called the relaxation response. And what's great about this one is that I keep doing that, day after day, week after week, month after month. It starts to become like a Pavlov's dog thing, if you remember from science class in high school. Basically, my brain and body will start to associate with my 5 fingers touching, with me being out of the stress response and in the relaxation response. So again, if I've been practicing this over and over and over again, I can come into a stressful situation and nobody even needs to know I'm doing it. I basically could just go like this and boom, in just a split second, it kind of activates that gets me out of that stress response. So those are a few, like I said, one longer one, a couple quick ones that you can use, the mindfulness type techniques where you've got your focus outside of all the worries and concerns you've got, in this case, on your breath or your body.
Yeah, that's great. I feel very relaxed now, Tom. Thank you. How does this practice benefit us in the areas that we've discussed? Health and wealth and just social interactions and so forth.
Yeah, it really has to go with what's going on in the body. So here we've got the stress response. That's all the bad stuff that I mentioned earlier. Well, when you do this, like you said, if you feel more relaxed, you feel calmer, you're probably in the relaxation response. And that's the exact opposite of the stress response. So the heart rate lowers, your blood pressure lowers. I had one person, I was teaching a bunch of teachers of this a month back or so. And one of the teachers actually had a heart rate monitor on. And she said when we started, her heart rate was at 94. When we finished just that short little body scan, the exact same body scan only took about 5 minutes. It dropped down to 62. So you can actually measure this stuff pretty good. But what's crazy, yeah, your immune system works better. Your sense of well-being improves. You're able to sleep better. Your digestion actually works better. A lot of great things happen with your health, which kind of offsets that stuff and stress, that you're dealing with the stress response. So just a daily practice of this type of stuff can really have a lot of benefits to your health. And then as far as your wealth, your relationships, it really all goes back to what's happening in the brain. So when we're in, when we're kind of focusing on our body or our breath, that's allowing us to kind of get back to that prefrontal cortex. When I mentioned during that body scan, I said, okay, if your mind wanders, it's no big deal. Just once you notice it, bring it back. What you're doing is basically you're taking your brain, by doing that, you're taking your brain to the gym. And you're actually training your brain to be able to catch yourself in the amygdala and bring it back to that prefrontal cortex. So you're increasing your awareness. So that's why, when I teach people these types of techniques, a lot of times after they've been doing it, for a week or two, they kind of come back to me and they're like, Tom, I can't do this. My mind keeps wandering all the time. I'm terrible at this. You don't know what you're talking about, Tom, whatever it may be. But I say, no, no, that's actually a good thing. That's actually a positive thing. You're taking your brain to the gym each and every day. And when you catch your mind wandering and you bring it back, you're teaching your brain how to catch yourself in the amygdala and bring it back to the prefrontal cortex. And that's where those decision makings, whether it's a financial decision making to stay in the market, whether it's, a decision that you have to make at work or with your kids or whatever that may be. And that's also bringing you back to that emotional intelligence, so that when you're feeling all that stress and your kids are getting on your nerves, or, your coworkers are getting on your nerves, you're able to, by these practices, quickly notice it, take a deep breath, maybe do those 3 mindful breaths or whatever it is, and bring it back to that prefrontal cortex. So you react positively in all those situations, whether it's, your finances, whether it's decisions at work, school, or whatever it may be, or with your relationships overall. So lots and lots of benefits that go with that, these types of practices.
Yeah, that's great, Tom. And as you've been talking and we went through the exercise, it really reminded me of, for those of us who are spiritual, religious, of prayer, and also of yoga. A lot of people, love yoga, the breathing and the concentration on different parts of the body and holding that. I've never done yoga myself, but I feel very relaxed when I'm exercising, for example, because you're concentrating on, your body. How's your body doing in that particular exercise, and trying to, distract yourself or not think about other things.
Yeah, that great point, Steve. So like repetitive prayer. So pretty much every, major religion has some type of repetitive prayer, and that does elicit the relaxation response. So I'm Roman Catholic, we have the rosary. And basically that's a repetitive prayer that I'm doing over and over and over again. I'm doing my Hail Marys, my Our Fathers, and that elicits the relaxation response. Yoga is the same thing. Yep, that's one that does the same thing. It elicits that relaxation response because, one, you're kind of stretching, you're using your body, but also the focus is on that stretching. It's not, your mind isn't, or shouldn't be at least, worrying about things. You're focused on kind of moving your body, stretching, whatever, maybe whatever pose you're in. That is an excellent. There are so many different ways to act, to elicit that relaxation response. And that's what I particularly loved about the program that I went through that I kind of talked about at the beginning, is we're just teaching people tons and tons of different things, because what works for me may not work for you, Steve. Something different works for you. So trying to introduce as many of these techniques as you can to figure out which one works for you. So that's why I always tell people, try this out, maybe, pick, do something for 30 days, try it out, just practice it each and every day for 30 days. Pretty sure you'll be hooked. But if that doesn't work, maybe try a different technique. If you go a few days and that particular technique doesn't work, that body scan doesn't work for you, try something different, because everybody's different. But you can, if you can find what works for you and then just stick with that, there's so many benefits that can come both for our health, our wealth, and our well-being, as the title mentions.
Okay, that's great. And so that's the time we have today. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Tom, for being with us. That was a fantastic presentation, and I hope all of you found it helpful. Please contact us if you have any questions. Today's presentation is being recorded, and so it'll be on our website. If you want to rewatch it or share it with family or friends who could benefit, that would be fantastic. So thanks again, and have a great, relaxing day.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tom.